Hi everybody, it is Trixie Tutor here. First off, I would like to apologize for the really noisy thing in the background. I am in the middle of doing my laundry, and for some odd reason my washer likes to make that huge loud noise. Anyway, this video is going to be part of a series that I'm going to call History with Trixie. And in this little video, I am going to try my best to not ramble. And we are going to cover Henry VIII. Exciting, I know. But bear with me here, because I have some things that the history books just didn't flat out fucking say. Now, I've been studying Henry VIII since I was probably 11 years old. So it's been 10 years of Henry VIII and his 6 wives and his illegitimate children and his mistresses and his children. And first off, I would like to say that I know that some of these things may or may not be true. Me being me, I like to not deduct. I come up with my own historical meaning behind some things. Sometimes I don't, but it all depends. Now, with Henry VIII, he's a well-known ruler. I mean, come on. He had 6 wives. He killed 2 of them. Divorced 2 of them. One died giving birth to the heir that he so desired. And the one actually survived. He survived him, basically, because he died. But some little known facts are the fact that, in my belief, I really do believe that between Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, he loved both of them dearly. And the facts that after those 2, he basically just married for an heir. He didn't really marry for love like he wanted to. He married because he needed an heir. And when he finally got one with Jane Seymour, his 3rd wife, and after she had died in childbirth, he had finally got it in his head, okay, 1 is not enough. You know the whole heir and the spare thing? He is the embodiment of that, because he only became king because his elder brother Arthur died. That is the only reason why. It's as simple as that. And he was not properly trained into becoming king. That's kind of a well-known fact, but then again it kind of isn't. Because he was the spare, and Arthur was really healthy up to the random illness that killed him, Henry VII was like, okay, well, he probably doesn't need to be trained to be ruler. He went through, and Henry was actually was being trained to join some religious thing, from my understanding. But, you know, after Henry VII died, Henry VIII, he became king at 17 years old. Now that's, in our times, that would be really young to become king. And back then it wasn't, because Mary Queen of Scots became queen when she was only a few days old. So it's not that bad back then, but today it's like, hey, he was pretty young when he became king. He went through and he got the dispensation to marry Catherine of Aragon. That is when that whole thing with Catherine of Aragon basically started. He got it into his head, if a man lies with his brother's wife, they will not have kids. Now, they had kids, but he didn't have the son that he desired. Every time that Catherine got pregnant, besides Mary the First, she either miscarried or the baby was stillborn or premature. So he went through and he got the divorce from her. After he just flat out, after she had started her menopause, that's when that all happened. He was like, okay, I see that I will not get any living children. This needs to just go. And he started his whole fling with Anne Boleyn, even though he had had an affair with Anne Boleyn's sister Mary. Now, with the Anne Boleyn thing, I honestly and truly believe that she didn't do the things that they said that she did. I mean, if you think about it, a Queen of England, she's watched all the time. Elizabeth II, the ruler now, she's not watched all the time, but if something major like that had happened, we'd fucking know about it. And, back then, the queens were always watched because they always constantly wanted to know, okay, did her bleeding stop? Was she possibly pregnant? We need to know. And when you look at Henry VIII, or Henry and Anne's daughter, Elizabeth I, they flat out were like, okay, well, we need to know if she's bleeding. We need to know if she's not bleeding. We need to know who she's with constantly, because Elizabeth I is known as the Virgin Queen. It's really as simple as that. But I honestly don't think that Anne could have done the things that she was accused of. And, the fact that she gave birth to Elizabeth I, and then after she had 2 miscarriages, that can't be all. It was entirely blamed on her, because back then, pregnancies and everything were blamed on the women. And giving birth to a girl was blamed on the woman. They were, and it's complete bullshit, because now we know, okay, the gender is because of the man, not because of the women. We have no control over if it's going to be a boy or a girl. But the thing is, with the whole Anne Boleyn situation, the shit she was fucking accused of. We have witchcraft into it. We have adultery into it. The adultery thing, completely out of the water, because how the fuck could she have done it? All eyes were on her. She was, in a lot of the ambassador's words, the king's whore, because he had left his first wife for her. And Catherine went through so much shit while he was going through and wanting to marry Anne Boleyn, like the fact that she was separated from Mary I for the rest of her life. Mary had no contact with her mother whatsoever, which was bullshit. And Mary was named a bastard. Mary was pretty much forced to sign the Act of Succession, making all of Anne and Henry's children legitimate, and Mary would have no claim. Mary went through so much shit that it's not even funny. But back on track to the Anne Boleyn thing, it's bullshit, because the fact of the matter is, women back then were entirely under the control of the men in their lives. Anne was pushed into that role by her father and her uncle. Her sister Mary had been pushed into that role by her father and her uncle. But when Mary hadn't succeeded in winning the king's, she won the king's heart, but it wasn't for long. They went through and they were like, okay, Anne, you need to do this. We need to get his attention away from his wife. We need to go through and change completely, everything completely in our favor. And she followed her father's commands and her uncle's commands, because if she didn't, Lord knows what would have happened. And then you also got to take into account she was basically raised in France with the Queen of France. And French women had so much dignity. They, well, I mean, depending on the woman, but women of the higher classes, you didn't really see them sleeping around with other men, you know, having affairs, prostitution. You just didn't see that with women in the upper class. And since Anne was a part of that and she was witnessed the culture, she brought that to England when she was ruler. She wouldn't have been able, I mean, she could have, but she didn't. And her losing her third child with Henry was because of stress, because he had gone through and gotten into a jousting accident. He was unconscious for like 2 hours. Everybody thought he was going to die. The stress of that, plus the stress of him going through and having an affair with Jane Seymour at the time. Well, it wasn't a full-blown affair. They never had sex. At least in my opinion, they didn't. But, you know, seeing your man with another woman when you really, really love him, that's going to break any woman's heart. And Anne went through so much shit that I honestly just, I don't, it's all the lies that we were told as kids. I seriously think that it was just, it's Tudor propaganda. And if you don't know what Tudor propaganda is, I will explain that in the next, or at least I'll try and explain it in the next one. Because it's, fuck it, I'll explain it now. Tudor propaganda is rewording history into basically something that favored them. Like with Henry VII, he went through and he flat out said, okay, well, Richard III killed the princes in the Tower. Richard III was a really, really bad king. He had no right to the throne whatsoever. But when you think about it, Henry VII had no right to the throne whatsoever either. Because his mother, Margaret Beaufort, was basically just thrown out of the line of succession, period. Because, I don't even know why, but she was just thrown out of the line of succession. So he had no right to be like, okay, well, I am the legitimate heir of the House of Lancaster. He had no right. He didn't. And that's basically just what Tudor propaganda is they reworded history to favor them when that's not what really happened. And if you take into account Henry VIII, he just flat out said, okay, well, Anne cheated on me. Anne was a witch. She was born with a 6th finger. She had a mole. All sorts of lies that I don't personally think are true. And then he went through and he basically, the lies that were told during his reign were absolutely fucking ridiculous. And the lies that we were told as children were ridiculous. Because, carrying on to Jane Seymour. Now, in my opinion, I seriously think that even though she did give Edward, his son Edward, the heir, the precious angel of the Tudor dynasty, I think that after a while, he would have gotten tired of her. Because that's just what he did. Like, he got tired with his playthings. And, you know, I think he had an admiration for her. He saw great potential in Jane Seymour, but he would have gotten tired of her, as, like, even if she had given him one more child, another heir, so he would have had his heir and his spare. It's just, in my opinion, I just see it that way. And the way that he married her was ridiculous to begin with, because he announced the engagement, I think, a day after Anne Boleyn was beheaded. And then, like, a couple weeks after they had gotten married. And then he went through, and once him and Jane had been married for like a month or something, he was like, well, why aren't you pregnant yet? And that to me just proves the cockiness that he had, because he thought he was so great that he could get a woman instantly pregnant, because that had technically happened with both of his first wives. Anne had gotten pregnant almost right away. Catherine had gotten pregnant almost right away. That's basically what he thought. It's like, okay, well, we've done the deed. Why aren't you pregnant? And, you know, I think he was really, really happy when she was finally pregnant. I'm not going to deny that. I think he was super ecstatic that he finally got his heir. And I think he was super, super happy that he finally got what he needed. And I seriously think that he did mourn Jane, because, I mean, she gave him what he wanted. But at the same time, he would have gotten tired of her regardless. It just would have happened. And then when you move on to Anne of Cleves, I don't believe any of the shit that he said about her either. He said that she looked like a horse, that she stinked, that I couldn't do the deed with her. She's the most ungodly woman I've ever set eyes upon. If you look at the portraits of her, she's actually really pretty. Like, really, really pretty. And so, I think it was just him thinking that he deserved all the world, when, I mean, I know that's the whole regalia of being king or queen, that you deserve, or that you can get anything you want in life. But at the same time, back then, kings and queens married for political advantages, and he went through and he flat out ruined that when a war with France and Spain was pretty much almost imminent. He ruined what he could have gotten by saying she's not what I thought she was, and that Thomas Cromwell lied to me. I get so irritated with that. Like, I know that I have no control over it, and it was really, and it was a long fucking time ago. But I'm tired of people thinking, well, he was just misunderstood. No, he was fucking insane! I mean, seriously! He freaking broke off from a church just so he could get married, when it wasn't entirely his wife's fault that she couldn't have kids. And then he went through and he made both of his oldest children illegitimate as soon as their mothers didn't give him the son that he desired. And it took him until like a couple years before he died to be like, oh, hey, Mary, Elizabeth, my loving daughters, guess what? You're reinstored to the line of succession. Aren't you thrilled? Like, no. They were born into that. Just because your wives did not give you the son does not mean that they should not be in the line of succession. And I'm glad that he went through and finally got talked back into it. It took him being talked back into it because he never got another son to be like, okay, maybe I need to go through and reinstate my daughters. Maybe they'll go through and they'll get married and they'll have sons and my dynasty will be continued. And hopefully my son will live past the age of 15 or will live to get married and have children and be all great, grand, and wonderful, and I don't have to worry about my daughters ruling. Maybe. Just maybe. And onward to Catherine Howard. I almost said Catherine of Aragon again. That's not right. On to Catherine Howard. This just makes me laugh. And I hate talking shit about an ancestor, because I found out I'm related to Henry VIII, and I really hate talking shit. But he was fucking stupid for marrying her. Like, one, she was like 16, 15, depending on what you read, around that age. And she was raised in a household that was known for being out there. Like, she was raised by her grandmother, and plenty of people after the whole affair between her and Thomas Culpeper was out there just flat out said, oh yeah, you know, we had men come in there at night and we'd have sex with them, and she would play with some dude and pretend that they were married, and then he went off to do something, and she was all like, oh, well, we were just children, so we weren't really married, we were just playing. Like, she was stupid, and he was stupider. Yeah, stupider for marrying her. Like, I get that she was young, and she was pretty, and she was spunky, and she had made him feel young again, but at the same time, she was a little whore. She was a little whore. Because it wasn't just Thomas Culpeper and Frances Durham, I think? Can't remember. But it was another person, too. Like, she was known to do things with two men before she got married to Henry. And then after she had gotten married to Henry, she was like, oh, hey, you know, now that I'm queen, I can do whatever the fuck I want, right? Let's go through and have sex with this dude. It's so stupid. Like, she was just stupid. I'm sorry. That whole marriage between them was just stupid. And I shouldn't say that she deserved to be beheaded. She deserved punishment, but she didn't deserve to die. Because she was a little kid when half of that happened, and yeah, she was stupid and fucked a dude when she was married to the king. But at the same time, like, she didn't deserve punishment or to die for that. But I guess back then, that's just what happened. And then when you get to Catherine Parr, his last wife, I think that match was good for him, in my opinion, because from what I have researched, she knew how to tame him. And by the end of his days, they got married in 1543, if I remember correct. 1543? I don't know. It had to be 1543 because I'm writing a book right now on that genre, and it's set in 1542, which is 6 years after Anne Boleyn got beheaded. So they got married in 1543. But from what I've researched, just like, she knew how to calm him, because at the end of his life, he was irritable. He had huge anger issues. The littlest things could piss him off. She knew how to play into his ego, I suppose. That's how you would word it. Like, she knew how to do it. And the fucked up part is she could have died. Because she was, I'm guessing, a Lutheran? I don't fully know. I know the story, but it varies, because some say she was a Lutheran, some say she was a Protestant. It varies, but she could have gotten arrested because of her religious beliefs. And she got into kind of a debate with Henry about it. And once it got around the time to her being arrested, he was like, okay, well, why are you so worked up? And she's like, well, I learned that you were probably going to arrest me. He's like, well, why would you think that? And why, like, what the fuck? Well, he didn't really say what the fuck. I'm using modern day terminology so y'all can understand. And she's like, well, I don't know, but somebody said that you were probably going to arrest me. And he's And the whole conversation continued, and she's like, well, you know, I said those things because I knew it would take your mind off of your leg and off of all the other problems that you're suffering with right now. And that's just basically what got her off the hook. She knew how to play into his ego, unlike all of his other wives. And a king can have really big ego. I'm just gonna fucking flat out say it. A king can have huge ego. Huge ego. But now that I've discussed all of his marriages, let's discuss him. Henry was... I seriously think that, and I'm taking some words from other historians who have flat out just said this, we seriously think that he was trying to find his mother in the women that he married. Because if you look at, I guess, some of the personalities that all of the women that he married had, they kind of resemble the personalities of Elizabeth of York. You know, Elizabeth of York was, from what all historians say, she was sweet. She was kind-hearted. She loved her children. She loved her husband. She was just a very, very... I think I've even read that some people called her an angel on earth. I and other historians seriously just think he was trying to find his mom and the women that he married. Now, I know that's fucked up, but think about it. You know, you were raised, if you were lucky enough, you were raised with two parents. You witnessed the love that was there if you were lucky enough to have it. And you were lucky enough to not see divorce and everything. You were raised with that. You knew what love was. You knew how love was treated. And that's probably what he was looking for. Even though, you know, he took the wrong approach to it. Because if you think about it, Catherine of Aragon was probably the closest thing he could have ever came to when he wanted to find his mom and his wives. You know, and it's the fact of the matter that I hate rambling. I'm trying not to ramble, but this is an almost 30-minute video. Jesus Christ. But then again, I am talking about history, so I get that way. But Catherine was just, she was treated so poorly. And if I feel for any of his wives, as much as I love learning about Anne Boleyn, because Anne Boleyn gave England Elizabeth I, Catherine, I feel for her the most because of all the shit that she had to go through. She had to deal with so many miscarriages when she really, really wanted to give Henry a son. She had to deal with being separated from her only surviving child until she died. She had to deal with the man that she loved leaving her for another woman. She had to deal with not being called Queen of England, even though she was. She got demoted to the title that she had when her first husband died, Dowager Princess of Wales. She went through so much shit because of Henry. And I feel for her the most. Because what can you fucking do? She didn't want to upset him. But she didn't want to lose something that she had been raised for all her life. She was raised to be Queen of England. Granted, when she came to England, she didn't know a lick of English. But she was raised to be queen. And that's just, I feel for Catherine the most. Because, I mean, she had to go through a divorce. She had to go through the heartache of being separated from her child. She had to go through the heartache of seeing her husband with another woman. And then knowing that he was going to leave her for that woman. it was just, she dealt with so much shit. And that's actually going to be the end of this video. I am sorry for the rant. I'm hoping next time will actually be better, because next time we are going to talk about Cleopatra. And then we'll delve right back into England. Anyway, you're amazing, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're talented. Don't let anybody tell you any different. I am going to live. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.